Hey everybody, it's Melissa from the Mount Horeb Public Library. I'm excited to share our December Take and Make project with you. We're going to make these are you ready for how cute these are? It's really adorable pinecone elves. You can either make ones that hang like this, or, see this little guy? Standing ones with little feet. Alright, so in your kits you have enough to make 3 of these. If you want to make a standing elf, you will need to find a piece of cardboard. I didn't provide that. Just cut out a little square from a cardboard box. But you have everything else you need. You have some pine cones. You have little hanging things on there. You have to tear those off. Sorry, I was just too lazy to take them off for you. You will find 3 little elf heads, some jingle bells, some stretchy plastic thread, piece of floral wire, and some pieces of felt. And then in the wax paper, you have 2 different sorts of glue. If you carefully open the wax paper up, you'll see a strip like this. The single strip is called hem tape. If you've never used hem tape before, side note, great for fixing clothing if you absolutely don't want to sew, or if you just need a quick fix. I will admit I have used it before to hem pants, but it also works if you've got a little tear or something. You just put this hem tape on, stick it together, and it will hold. You can actually wash it a couple of times anyway. All right, back to the craft. So the other thing that's in here are strips of glue dots. They're exactly what the name is, a little dot of glue. Okay, so that's everything you need other than a pair of scissors. All right, are you ready to get started? I'm going to switch cameras so that you can see my hands a little bit better, and we'll get ready to make super cute little elves. Be right back. So the first step is to decide which piece of felt you'd like your hat to be out of. If you'd like to make 2 hats out of 1 piece of felt, you can do that by cutting a circle out of the entire square, as large as you can get. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle by any means, and that would give you 2 hats because you cut a circle and then you cut it in half. However, I kind of like to have multiple different colored hats on my elves, so I fold my piece of felt in half like this, and kind of just press it down, and then open it up, and that kind of gives you a little bit of a line. And now I'm going to cut a half circle out of this felt because you make the hat out of a half circle. So I'm just going to go ahead and roughly cut this. Does not need to be a perfect half circle at all. All right, so there we go. It's kind of half circle-y, and I'm just going to set this to the side because we'll use that in a little bit. So then to make the hat, you're going to turn this piece of felt kind of into a cone shape. This flat edge makes the point of the cone. Now, to me, this is actually probably the hardest step, but for others, they find this pretty easy. So everybody's kind of got their own crafting ability and skills. So the way I do this is, the first things I do is I put it this way so that the straight side is on top, and then I fold a little bit of the corner down like this, and then I'm going to fold that in as well, like that. So you can see it's kind of making a point right there. And then I'm going to roll this like this. I'm just going to roll it around kind of like that. So you see, there we go. It looks pretty cone-like, right? Pretty close anyway. You might have to adjust a little bit. Try to make sure that you have a little bit of an opening at the top. If you don't, it's okay. We can just trim it, but it works out a little easier. You're going to use that to put the bell on in a little bit. So you need a way to make sure that this stays sealed. So what I do is I grab a piece of this hem tape, this long sticky stuff. It is really sticky. If you've never used hem tape, it's amazing for a lot of things, but it is really sticky, so it's kind of frustrating to work with sometimes. What you're going to do is you're going to peel up a piece about the length of your hat. I'm just going to use my hat to kind of do a rough measure here, and then just trim that, like that. And I'm going to stick this, turn this around, on this edge of my material. I'm just going to undo the hat there to show you, mainly because I got this a little bit bigger than I needed to, so I'm just going to trim this off a little bit. All right. And then you're going to peel this off. Well, I'll do this first because it is so sticky. Make my little hat shape again. The other thing that I want to make sure is that, there we go. Hey, worked out better that time. Is that my little head fits inside of there before you actually stick this down. Make sure that your elf head will fit in the hat. Okay. So you're going to peel this off. this. It's kind of tricky to get off of here. You might have to peel from various sides until you get it to let loose. There we go. But it will work. You just have to have a little bit of patience. So peel that backing off. And then I'm going to fold this over like that. There we go. Now I'm going to put my little elf head in here. And he's very cute, but he can't really see over the top of his hat. Poor little elf. So what we're going to do is we're just going to trim this off a little bit. So by putting the head in here, I can see that I'm going to need to trim this about halfway up. I kind of like see half of the head. So I'm going to mark that maybe spot with my thumb. It's about right here. And I'm just going to cut this just like this. Trim it off. Trim off sparingly the first time because you might make it too little. But if you make it too big, you can trim a little more, but it's hard to put material back on. All right, so now you've got this cute little elf hat. Now to make this stay on his head, we're going to do something. But first, we need it to have a little jingle bell. So I'm going to set the hat down like this. I'm going to grab my little jingle bell and then the floral wire. The floral wire needs to be about 1/2 inch longer than the hat because we're going to use this to put through the bell. So I'm just going to trim this like that. And then I'm going to stick the end of the floral wire through the loop on the top of the bell by about 1/2 inch or so. Maybe you can see that. And then I'm just going to fold this over and wrap it around this other piece of wire. So just twist it around there a couple of times. There we go. So now you've got a jingle bell on a wire. It's also a nice little musical instrument. So we're going to stick this into the hat through that little hole that I mentioned to try to leave at the top. And see if you can get that in there. Depending on how the fabric rolled, you might have to shimmy it around a little bit. And, I'm going and might have to take it back out. I was trying to put down through the area that was taped. That doesn't work. All right. So then you just pull that in there. To make this stay inside of the hat, we're going to take a glue dot. And I'm just going to take a glue dot here. And I'm going to stick the glue dot over the top of the wire onto the hat, okay? And I'm actually going to try to do that at the back. So there's the seam of my hat right here. And so I'm going to put the piece of wire on that seam, take my glue dot, and do my best to put that up inside of the hat, push down, and then peel that off. There we go. Now I've got a little extra piece here sticking out, which I actually like when that happens because then I can fold that up onto that glue dot and that gives me some more surface area that's glued. There we go. So now you can stick it on the hat. To do that, we're going to put 2 glue dots, one on each side of the top of the wooden ball. Again, I try to do this without touching the glue dots. The more you touch them, the less adhesive they become, and we like them to stay as sticky as possible. So I'm going to put one on this side and one on this side. So I consider that the front and the back of my little elf head. And I'm going to stick it accordingly inside of the hat. Oh, I'm going to try to anyway. Okay. So and pull the hat down a little. All right, there you go. You've got an adorable little elf head. So now you have to decide whether you want him to be a hanging elf or a standing elf. All right. If you want to do a hanging elf, you have everything you need in your kit. If you want to do a standing elf, you need a little piece of cardboard, like maybe 3 inches or so. We're going to do the hanging elf first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of these pine cones here, maybe this one. And for the hanging elf, you make it so that the petals are facing down and the flat side of the pine cone is facing up. The flat side of the pine cone is what we're going to attach the elf head to, all right? Now you'll notice that there's a stem here. I already trimmed off, by the way. They have these little gold loops on that I'd mentioned at the beginning. You just got to cut that off. So you can see I have a little remnant there, but that's going to get covered up. So I'm going to put some glue dots on the bottom of my little elf head, and I'm just going to stick it on the top. I'm going to stick it a little bit off to the side so that I'm not trying to stick it on top of the stem because that just doesn't work very well. So I'm going to grab my glue dots again, find where some are on this piece here, and I'm going to stick 2 glue dots on here on the bottom, almost on top of each other. There's 1. There's 2. Okay. And then I'm just going to stick this on here. Let's see. I probably want this pointy part going towards the back. So where's the back of my hat? There's the back of my hat. So I'm going to line that up with the back of that. And I'm just going to stick the head on like this. There we go. Notice my little hat, the way I cut it, it has this little point. Kind of makes him look like a 3 Musketeer. I kind of like it that way. So I'm just going to leave it. You could trim that up a little more if you wanted. Okay, so now you've got the head and the body. Neck is a little cold though, so you need to make a scarf. So you're going to grab one of the pieces of felt that you have lying around, left over from cutting out the hat. So this one, you can see I cut the hat out of half of it already. I'm going to use this piece and I'm just going to cut the full length of it, about a ½ inch or so. That's going to make my scarf. The other thing the scarf needs, though, it needs a little bit of fringe, like a scarf looks. I found that 4 cuts is good. If I did more than that, the little fringes got too fragile and they ended up tearing when I was working with them. So I just do 4 cuts on each end to make a little scarf fringe. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I've got the scarf. You are going to need a little piece of hem tape once you get the scarf on here to hold the scarf in place. But basically, you just wrap this around like so. If you want, so there's this back piece. If you want to break that piece off if it's in your way, it's kind of in my way, so I'm going to do that. Just like that, just break it off. All right, that just makes my scarf lay a little bit better. So I'm going to wrap that around like this. I'm just going to set it down for a second and grab a little tiny piece of this hem tape. You don't need much at all for the scarf. Maybe like so. And you're going to put that hem tape wherever you think the scarf is going to overlap. So I'm going to have mine overlap right about here. So I'm just going to put this hem tape like this. Really press that down. The more you press it down, the better the sticky part stays on the felt. All right, and then peel the backing off. And then you just fold your scarf over. And there you go. Almost done, really close. Only thing we have left to do is to put the hanging part on. So you're going to grab a piece of your clear thread. This is 8 or 9 inches or so. I think that's a decent size. So I tie a little loop knot in it first. And then we're going to put this over the hat and make sure that the loop goes on the felt, not just on the wire and the bell. If you put it just on the wire and the bell, because when you hang it, all that weight is going to be on the hat. I'm pretty sure that the bell and the wire would just fall right out, which means the elf would fall down, and that would be sad. So I tie it on to the top of the hat like this, and I put a double knot in it, and I pull it as tight as I can without breaking the elastic. All right. And then I just go to the top, and I just put a loop in at the top as well. The way I do that is I take both pieces of thread and just tie them in a little knot, pulling this as far towards the edge of the pieces of string as possible so you have a bigger loop. Just like that, and you've got your little hanging elf. Super cute. But now let's say you want to do a standing elf. So you start the same way. You make the hat and the head and the bell the exact same way. Then you pick a pine cone that you're going to use to put the head on with the petals facing up. See that? You go this way. Because the head's going to go on the pointy parts of this, and the feet are going to go on the flat part of the pine cone for the standing up one. So you're going to take your elf head, I happen to have one right here, and you're going to set it in your pine cone. Now this one, it's not so bad. It sets pretty decently in there. If it didn't, let's say I was using this one, you'll notice here it doesn't have a whole lot of surface to adhere to the petals. It's mostly this pointy part. So I would break off a couple of petals here, and that would help this set down in there a little bit more, okay? But I'll use this one. And so what we are going to do is we're going to put 2 glue dots on the bottom of the head. You find a strip with some glue dots here. Again, I do this just by pushing the head right on top of the adhesive itself instead of trying to peel the glue dots up. All right, so I'm going to do one there. I'm going to do another one almost at the same spot, just like that. And then I'm going to just push this down on top of the pine cone. I'm going to do my best to make sure that as much of that adhesive touches petals as possible. Okay. All right, it's okay if this is not pretty because we are going to cover it up with a scarf. It's great. So now I've got my head stuck on there. I'm going to make the feet next. So like I mentioned, in order to do a standing pine cone, you're going to need a piece of cardboard. I just cut this off of the edge of a box. You'll want it to be a little bit longer than your pine cone is wide because you want to make sure that the feet stick out while there's still enough to hold on to the pine cone itself. All right. So this one looks plenty big. So what I do is I cut a heart out without a point. You can draw this first if you want to, or you can just free cut it. So this, I'm going to fix this one a little bit. So these rounded parts are the shoes. Let's see, maybe go this way. All right, so then, get that out of the way. You'll need a piece of felt to cover up your shoes. You can pick any color that you want. You have lying around. Let's see. I have, let's use some of this that I used for the other hat. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a pen and you're going to trace your shoes onto this piece of felt. Now, you don't need felt at the very back of your shoes. In fact, we don't want it there because we have to put some glue there and things work better. If you don't glue straight to the felt, it likes to glue to the cardboard a little better. So just trace around your feet. Just a rough trace and then cut that out. And then we're going to cut out a little tiny spot in the back, kind of a semicircle, for the glue dot to fit in. So I'm just going to trim that, and this like this, and let me set them on top here and just make sure that they fit okay. Well, not the worst, but I could do a little better job on this foot, can't I, on this shoe? So I'll just trim that up. Okay, actually I should have it the other way so you don't see my pen marks. Okay, let's see how they do. Pretty good. But now, like I said, I need to cut out a little circle, half circle in the back so that my glue dot fits. So I'm just going to cut that out like that. There we go. And now I'm going to take a couple of pieces of hem tape. Doesn't take a whole lot, just 2 little pieces. I'm going to use the hem tape to glue the feet down. Like this. Make sure again that you really push that hem tape down so that you can peel the backing off easier. There we go. Now remember, if I'm going too fast for you in this video, the great thing about videos, you can stop and rewind as many times as you need. All right. The other great thing about videos is it's possible that I've recorded this more than once today. Okay, so these are the shoes. We need a glue dot right here. Let me find another glue dot. See if I've got any left from my papers here. Oh, what did I do with all my glue dots? Oh, there's one. Fell right off. So I'm just going to take a glue dot and push down in the middle, peel that off. Then I also like to put a glue dot on the bottom of my elf because I think it just makes it stick better. So I'm going to do the same thing where I just push the glue dot on the bottom of the pine cone. And then I look where the back of my seam is, or the back of my hat. So there's the seam. So I want this towards the back of my elf. So it's going that way so that my shoes are at the front. And I'm just going to push down and we hope that it stands up the first try. Oh, it did. Good. That doesn't always happen. But my little elf's neck is cold. It needs a scarf. Well, lucky for me, I happen to have one right here. So when you're doing the scarf on your standing up elves, you need to weave the scarf in between the pine cone petals. See that? Kind of wove it in between there. If I don't do that, if I just do this wide, then there's this big gap and the poor elf's neck is cold. All right. So you just weave this in. And then we grab another piece of hem tape. Told you I love this stuff. It works so well for this craft and so many other little things. And then you just have to decide, oops, that little hem tape didn't have any stickum on it. I need one with some stickum. You just have to decide where your scarf is going to overlap. So I like to have mine overlap right over here. So I'm just going to put a piece of hem tape right here. I'm going to peel that off. I'm going to get it stuck on there first, and then I'm going to peel it off. Come up, hem tape. The smaller your pieces, the harder this part is to peel off that backing. There we go. All right, so I'm weaving the scarf in amongst the petals, and I'm just going to fold that over just like that. All right, you're almost done. The other really great fun part about the standing up elf, so you have this really tall pointy hat, you have floral wire in there. So if you want, you can actually bend the hat over a little bit, which I think is even extra cute. There you go, little standing, oh, just jumped over, little standing up elf. Ta-da!
So there you go. You have two new little elf friends. I think that these would make great just winter decorations for any time that there's snow on the ground or it's cold outside because they're so cute. I might just set this little friend right next to me on my workstation just so that I always have a little buddy. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure that you click subscribe in the button below so that you get to make sure you keep up with all of our different craft videos. There's also some wonderful other activities and resources, and Nora does a great job with children's story times. Even if you're an adult, I think sometimes it's really lovely to just watch and have a story read to you. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in January for our January Take and Make. Bye.